Hey everybody, what is going on? Welcome to another episode of Yammy Noob. In today's show, we are going to be reviewing in a comprehensive way the Iron 1200 Sportster Roadster from Harley Davidson. Why does this thing have so many names? What is it like to ride? And most importantly, how does a non-Harley guy feel about this motorcycle? Well, you're going to find out in today's episode. Stick around. So why on earth do I have a Sportster in front of me? Have I lost my mind? Do I own one of these bikes? Do I secretly have a Harley collection you guys don't know about? Well, no, this is actually one of our giveaway motorcycles and time is actually running out to win it. If you head over to shop.yammynoob.co and pick out anything you want, you've only got a couple more days to get entered to win this motorcycle. You're gonna get entered to win with 4x entries for every dollar you spend. We've got a bunch of new merch on there right now. We're actually using a new provider. This stuff is super high qual, way better than the stuff we used to have. So go and check out all of our merch and everything else we got over on shop.yammynoob.co and get entered to win this Sportster 1200. You are not gonna wanna miss it. But let's learn a little bit more about the history of this bike, and then we're gonna learn more about the specs and ultimately my opinion on this machine. So, at the heart of the Sportster is a 1202cc 45-degree V-twin that makes about 70 horsepower and 70 foot-pounds of torque at a little under 6,000 RPM. Now you might be saying, Yammy, that is a very, very low RPM limit, but you gotta remember, we're talking about a Harley Davidson here, right? Long stroke engine. It's not designed to rev out a bunch. It's designed for low-end punchy torque. The architecture of this engine is from 1986. You gotta remember that. So, contributing to that old school flavor and character, you'll notice that there's no radiator on this motorcycle. That's an air-cooled engine here, providing you more of that classic charm and flavor. This engine is pretty unique as well in that it doesn't have valves at the top. It has a pushrod system that actually has a bunch going on down here at the motor instead of at the top. So, what makes the Roadster a little bit special is these upside-down fork at the front. The upside-down fork provides a little bit more feel under braking. It's supposed to give a little bit stiffer of a feel and vibe to this motorcycle. The dual disc brakes up front too are different from the Sportsters, but I'll be honest, you don't really feel that much of an increase in braking performance with this Sportster dual disc setup. Another thing that this bike comes with as well that is Sportster Roadster specific are these handlebars. You got the lower handlebars, more of that classic kind of sport standard style on this thing. It's a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more hunched over, but ultimately the ergonomics package on this thing is a little bizarre because it's still kind of a cruiser back here. You have mid-mounted controls, but low bars. So eventually you end up kind of sitting clamshell on this bike, which is a little bit strange. Going back to the engine, we've done a few modifications to this thing. We've kind of done your classic stage 1 mods that people call online. We've done the air intake over here, the Vance & Hines high flow air filter. And we've also done the Vance & Hines 2-into-1 exhaust pipe over here as well and paired it with the fuel controller, which probably increased this power output to maybe 87 or 88 horsepower for being totally honest. Now, the Sportster has a very limited range because of this small gas tank over here. You'll notice it has that classic peanut gas tank, so you're not gonna be crushing huge miles at a time with this thing. This is a bike that you're definitely going to be riding maybe from coffee shop to coffee shop, doing a bit of a weekend ride type of thing. Not much range on this thing. The seat over here, pretty comfortable for what it is, but again, if you don't pair it with an upgraded suspension system that we've upgraded on this bike, you're gonna have a bad time because the stock Sportster has only about 2 to 3 inches of suspension travel, whereas you're really gonna wanna get something a little bit longer to actually go on the road with. We think that a stock suspension Sportster 1200 just simply won't really cut it for road duty, and that is a bummer because you'd wanna see a brand new motorcycle actually coming with something pretty good from the factory. But again, this is a motorcycle that hasn't really changed in the last 30 years, which is also probably why Harley Davidson is sunsetting and discontinuing this model. One final note I want to make about this machine is that it comes with a 19-inch front end and an 18-inch out back. So that's pretty different from your standard 17-inch tire sizes you would see on a traditional Japanese motorcycle. So with all that being said, the Sportster is an old school, charming, interesting bike when you look at its specs. It's way more than the sum of its parts, but we gotta compare it to some other competitors in the category. Let's take a look at how the Sportster stacks up versus its natural predators. Now, when it comes to competitors to the Sportster 1200, the choices are pretty clear. The Honda Rebel 1100 comes to mind in that kind of 80 to 100 horsepower intermediate level cruiser And we were fortunate enough to give one of these away back in 2021, so we have extensive experience with this motorcycle. Now, that bike is powered by a new age parallel twin. It comes from the Africa twin. It's modern, it's light, it's peppy, it's fun. It is the polar opposite of what a Sportster 1200 is. And if there's anyone out there cross-shopping these two bikes, leave me a comment down below, because I'd definitely love to hear from you, because they are so different. We rated the Rebel 1100 pretty dang high on our reviews of it, and I think it's a fantastic bike. It comes in at a very aggressive price point, features a great sound, it handles really well, but it doesn't have that flavor and charm if you're looking for an authentic American cruiser experience. Now, one motorcycle that might come to mind is the Indian Scout. That's another motorcycle we gave away back in 2020, and we had a ton of fun with that thing. It is much more spiritually close to the Sportster 1200 than the Rebel 1100 ever was. The Scout features a big liquid-cooled motor, big V-twin, makes about 100 horsepower, revs out pretty well, and in the standard configuration, it's a bit of a handful because the motor actually makes way too much power for the tires and the frame of that engine in that motorcycle. It's a really fun engine and a really peppy bike, and I think that it kind of splits the difference between the Rebel 1100 and the Sportster 1200. The Scout is a really, really cool motorcycle, and we had a ton of fun riding it. And I think if you're looking at the authentic motorcycling experience and that American V-twin thing, it definitely should be the one you get, although the price point can be a little bit high for most people. The last bike I wanted to mention as an honorable mention is the Triumph Speedmaster / Bobber. These bikes are really cool, and I've yet to have the chance to swing a leg over one of these machines, and I'd love to ride one if the opportunity arose. In spirit, it seems to be closer to the Scout than the Sportster 1200. It features the 1200cc parallel twin from Triumph, and it has a steel cradle frame and a little bit more of that laid-back cruiser aesthetic. Overall, I think the Triumph Speedmaster probably would be a pretty good fit for someone looking to cross-shop these bikes. Ultimately, I think if you're leaning towards the more modern options and offerings, the Rebel 1100 makes a ton of sense. But if you want that old school potato charm that the Sportster have, you have to accept no substitutes. But let's wrap up this video with what I think about the motorcycle as a dyed-in-the-wool, non-Harley guy. And here's the thing. I used to not like these motorcycles before I really rode them and understood them. Back in 2020, we had an Iron 883 that we gave away. We 1275 swapped it, and that was a ton of fun. It was really cool to go into the guts of that motorcycle and really turn it and transform it into something totally different. And then now we got this Sportster Roadster 1200 thing, and it's the more sporty alternative with the upside down forks and the twin discs up front. And to be honest, these are really charming motorcycles, but you have to temper your expectations. That's the biggest thing. You have to understand what it is that you're riding. You have to understand the context of these motorcycles too. Obviously, the fundamentals of these bikes are pretty atrocious. I can say that with confidence. They handle bizarrely, the seating position is strange, the power's kind of woeful, it revs out in a really bizarre way for a motorcycle to rev out. But if you don't approach it from that perspective of like, this needs to be a cutting edge Japanese or European motorcycle, you can start to really appreciate the bike for what it is. These motorcycles can offer people a ton. You can modify them to your heart's content. They have plenty of aftermarket support. The knowledge on these bikes is just out of control. You can go on the forums and learn everything you need to learn about a Sportster. So if you're that type of guy that wants to get something that you can customize, you can turn into your own, you can really enjoy and keep for basically forever, the Sportster's a really cool option. I know a lot of guys personally that have a bike like the Sportster in their stable alongside their other motorcycles. And that's something I always tell you guys. You always want to have a balanced stable of bikes, right? You want a super fast cutting edge sport bike, maybe an off-road bike, a long distance adventure bike, and you know what? Why not throw in a Sportster or a Guzzi or a Triumph or something a little bit more characterful in the stable as well? It provides kind of a balanced diet of motorcycling, let's say. Now, the Sportster for me is not a bike I would personally own. I'm just gonna put that out there and be completely honest. In terms of characterful retro bikes, well, I already own one. I own a Ducati Scrambler Desert Sled, and I feel like it splits the difference between something that is reasonably modern and still has character. It's an air-cooled V-twin that's still a ton of fun to rev out and enjoy, but the seating position is a little more normal and it's just a little bit better of a motorcycle in almost every way. But I know that for a lot of people, The Harley-Davidson brand, the bar and shield, it represents something. It means something to people. And if you want to own the real deal, you gotta own a Harley-Davidson. There's really no other bike quite like it, and for that reason, I really respect the machine. I respect what the Sportster has and what it offers, because it's a motorcycle that stands alone in today's marketplace. There is no other bike you can buy brand new that is virtually the same from 1986. That is quite the claim to fame. And I'm kind of sad that they're discontinuing it. They're gonna leave a big vacuum in the marketplace for this characterful, charming cruiser motorcycle that you can no longer really own. And that's kind of the long and the short of it, folks. So thanks so much for watching today's video. I really appreciate it. Remember, we are giving away that Roadster 1200. You have just a few days left to get entered to win it. Head over to shop.yamanoob.co. No discount code required. Whatever you purchase on there, every dollar is gonna get you 4x entries to win. We've got all of our new merch. We got an awesome new Do Wheelies shirt that I'm gonna be wearing a ton in videos because I think it's such a cool design. And we've also got a bunch of gear for beginners as well. If you're a beginner rider, look to get your helmet, your jacket, your gloves, your boots, all that great stuff over on shop.yamanoob.co. Make sure you get entered to win. You're not gonna wanna miss it. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Brother, only one thing to say to you today. While we sit here, taking a knee, it's a special moment, me and you hanging out here, do it. I don't even got to tell you what to do. You already know what to do. You've made it to the end of the video. You got the time. I know you're sitting there. You want to make sure that you can keep watching yourself some Yamanoob. So what you want to do, just click that video right over here. Do it.